Hey guys, and welcome back to our MEK podcast. I'm Marilyn.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Kitty.
And today we'll be talking a lot about young adolescents.
Like middle schoolers?
Exactly. More specifically though, we'll talk about the things that make young adolescents, well, young adolescents.
And we'll be talking about how SEL practices affect them and their teachers.
Great. Let's jump right in. Okay, so I really want to talk about one of my favorite lessons that we did with our MEK group, which was Inclusion Jenga.
Oh my god, yes, that was a really good lesson.
Yes, it was great because they loved it, but it was also great because it showed us how they viewed identity. This, however, was the most concerning part, and it showed us a lot about what MEK truly is.
I agree, it definitely saddened me to see, but I do really think they liked working together and completing with one another.
So for some context, guys, for one of our MEK lessons, the theme for the week was culture and identity.
And this was definitely one of the hardest weeks to come up with a lesson because we started realizing that these kids don't really understand those concepts.
Right, and for 7th graders, you would think that they'd have a grasp on those concepts or be more passionate about their own identities. I know I was when I was in 7th grade, but seeing that they were indifferent about these ideas of identity in general was disheartening.
No, yeah, I think we can all agree that we definitely did. And also now we are all very passionate about this theme. Especially for me, I really want to incorporate this in my future classroom. It's literally like my top priority, but obviously MEK had a different idea.
Oh,
I'm crying.
But yeah, so after sitting in the library for like a good hour and having a really good conversation, we finally decided and came up with Inclusion Jenga.
I came up with that name.
Period. So essentially, it was regular Jenga with some quirky additions. Here are the rules. So if you pull a piece with blue tape on it, you need to pull again. And if you pull a piece with a question written on it, you must answer it. If you pull a piece without either of these things, then you don't have to do anything but put it on top of the tower. If someone pulls a question that you'd like to answer, you're more than welcome to, but you don't have to if you don't want to. However, you must answer the questions that you pull. The game ends when the tower falls, and we will start our reflection once it does. When the tower has fallen, I would guide us through some reflection questions about culture and identity.
It was great. We thought it was complicated, but they caught on to the rules very quickly.
They did, and I really enjoyed the competitive and playful aspects of this game. But the inclusion questions threw them for a loop. One thing that really threw me off was that none of them knew what the word bias meant. And when they saw a question about how they would feel or if they wanted to see themselves represented in the classroom, they were confused and were like, "You mean my name in the problem?" Which, I mean, yes, but also no.
No, exactly. And I think this stems from MEK's ideas of diversity as a whole. Being welcomed into MEK has been truly a privilege into the education program. But I've noticed that they are unaware of bias as well. The school promotes diversity, but the students seem to not grasp it.
Yeah, the halls are as diverse as a golden corral.
I'm crying, but seriously, even the kids noticed the problem. When we were talking to another group, they expressed how their kids were upset about the lack of diversity and named the other 4 students of color in their school. And 2 of them were in that room.
But don't get me started that they don't have a special needs program.
And let's not forget the maybe 2 LGBTQ plus teachers.
You're killing me. But seriously, let's also not forget that they have programs for blind and deaf students.
But it is crazy. Remember when we met the administration of MEK and Mr. Jones, the head of MEK's admissions, said they were diverse, but only 7% of the school had diverse backgrounds.
You're right. I even felt the lack of representation when we first walked in. And that makes me and students like me feel insignificant. Cornelius Minor talks about it in We Got This.
He does?
Yes, ma'am. He says, "For many, the theory of me is safe. I can be on a book or at a podium. I can be a concept. Multiculturalism, voice, inclusion. I can even be a representative. Black men, Africans, New Yorkers. But for some of those same folks, the reality of me is threatening. I cannot be a person."
Wow, that's a tragic reality.
It truly is. And that's how I felt since coming to ISU and being in MEK. I felt more tokenized than I ever have these past 2 semesters. I'm the token black person, the token hand raiser, the token opinionated woman, and the token question asker. But these things are fine as long as the topic is multicultural education.
What do you mean?
I mean that people only let me speak up on diversity because I am diversity. The moment the subject of the conversation shifts, so should the spokesperson. I shouldn't talk anymore after that.
That's terrible.
It is, and that isn't even the extent of it. Many treat me like I'm a threat, like my anger is a given. This and the fear that many people have of offending me and of embarrassing themselves makes them reluctant to disagree with me. It makes them reluctant to agree with me too. It makes them reluctant to say anything at all. And they think it makes me feel seen.
Well, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel invisible, more so than I've ever felt. But it also makes me sad because many of our students are feeling these same things. They are talking to people who they don't know are listening and hoping the message gets through. They are trying to be seen as individuals by people they don't know are looking. It feels useless. It feels like we don't matter.
I hate that. This is why we should encourage our students to speak up in their classrooms.
Exactly. Students should feel comfortable enough to speak up about their identities and ask questions about others.
Regarding speaking up in the classroom and for our kids directly, making norms was the best starting point into our experience with Wally, Paige, and Bowen. They were able to choose their own values and standards, and I was really proud of how insightful they were. And I felt like they were able to be seen and heard. Even Dr. Kessler was happy we had standards and a bond after our first lesson plan. They were so funny with making the analogy, don't be a brick, and were able to express what that meant for them, because at the end of the day, who wants to be a brick?
I think that choice and them being able to have choice is super important because I don't feel like they have much of it.
What do you mean?
Well, when we did the wavelength activity with them, we kind of made a sad discovery about how they see their futures.
Yes, their reaction to what we asked them about their future has really stuck with me.
Yes, me too. So essentially, we played the game Wavelength with our kids, asking them questions about their expectations for teachers and what they are striving for. What are their goals, essentially? In our reflection for this activity, we noted that the students answered the questions, but they weren't extremely engaged. I asked them questions about their goals and the future, but they weren't very prepared to answer them. They knew that they were going to go to high school and college, but they weren't certain that they wanted to do it. It seemed like people told them that they should go to college and that they would have a great experience, but they couldn't tell me why.
Yes, Bowen quite literally told us he wants to sit on the couch and eat chips in the basement and thinks he can skip high school entirely and just go to college.
He really said that, didn't he?
Yes, and poor Paige was like, I want to go to college, but I don't know why. And this whole conversation was just so sad because when I was their age, I was planning. I was plotting and planning, and I had goals and aspirations. They just want to play Geometry Dash, and they like the concept of college, but they don't really understand what that means.
Right. This actually reminds me of the power imbalance Minor was talking about.
Well, what did he say?
Right. Share with the class.
I suppose I will. He said a positive interaction based on a power imbalance, the powerful interacting with the powerless, is not a positive interaction. It is a colonizing one.
Can you expand on that?
I suppose I can. As adults, we often assume that children's positive reactions to our actions, requests, and ideas are representations of agreeance, democracy, and collaboration in our relationships with them. However, the truth is that before kids know how to do anything else, they know how to make their parents smile.
What that mean?
Let me tell you what that means. It means that they know how to get a favorable reaction from authority figures in their lives before they can speak.
That's deep. Insightful, even.
I'm aware.
Oh.
Anyways, like any other human beings, children are self-aware enough, they are more than aware of their positions of powerlessness to calculate how an adult will respond to their reactions. And adults look down on children so much that they believe their positive reactions to their prompts to be truth and not a carefully filtered, easily read response or blatant indifference.
What does this mean for teachers, though?
It means that as teachers, it would be a failure on our part to ignore or forget how powerless our children are and feel in the face of an authority that has power over them just by virtue of being older than them. It also means that we need to respect them enough to give them choices, but that is often overlooked in the face of adhering to standards and following curriculum.
On a more positive note, remember how fun it was for our last lesson to be Super Student Choice Day?
Yes, I think the kids really enjoyed playing with us and feel like we really bonded as a group.
This definitely was the most I've seen the boys in particular open up.
Yes, for Super Student Choice Day, we played a round of Uno and opened up the floor for other suggestions. Paige and I wanted to color, so Marilyn taught the boys and Kitty how to play Slapjack, which is a game she played all her years of high school. Marilyn beat the boys in the card game, and they loved every second of it.
Side note, they were really impressed that I knew how to shuffle cards.
Girl, we all were. And also, at the end, I had them all sign my SpongeBob coloring sheet, which was really sweet. And now I always have a little memento to remember this group.
It was so sad and relieving to see the kids were so relaxed with Student Choice Day after so much discussions of being tired by sports and theater. I was so worried about them being burnt out and how can they be a part of us as a community and still have a sense of belonging.
It really was, because I could see it in their eyes that they were getting more and more tired by the end of the semester.
Don't they have resources at MEK to help with that?
No, remember our debrief with Dr. Haust? And we all had discussed as a class how they really leave it up to our kiddos and parents to prevent burnout.
Now, why should we do that?
I really don't know, but it felt so dehumanizing, and our kids have expressed feeling out of place within the school.
Because all they have are classes and sports.
They really only do, though.
Yes, and they have all these activities but no time to socialize and time to be a kid.
This is so sad because kids, like all the rest of us, are humans and they get tired and need their parents and their teachers to care. Minor says, I want kids to understand that they are great and worthy of attention and time and love simply because they are human, and I couldn't agree more.
Same. And I feel like you've been advocating for children's humanity a lot lately.
Children often feel that they need to earn an adult's respect, love, admiration, attention, time, and concern. When I was a child, I felt that way. Did you guys feel that way too?
Yes.
I still feel that way.
Lore accurate, me too. But the truth is, and always was, that we were more than worthy of all of those things because we deserved them, and not because we were perfect or unbroken or all together or well behaved, but because we were people, because we are people.
Right, and our students deserve those things too.
Correct. Our students, past, present, and future, are people, meaning they are due the respect, love, admiration, attention, time, and concern of every adult in their lives. I hate to rain on our parade, but there is so much death in the classroom because students are not treated like humans.
What'd that mean?
For real.
Let me tell y'all what that means. As a matter of fact, let Gloria Ladson Billings tell y'all what that means.
Tell her to tell the class.
I shall. She said, if we stop growing, we will die. And more importantly, our students will wither and die in our presence.
This brings me back to my original question.
Which was?
What'd that mean?
I suppose I'll tell you. But first, allow me to clarify. The death Gloria Ladson Billings describes isn't literal or physical, but it is real.
Wait, if it isn't physical or literal, how is it real?
Learning is a choice that people make. And when we choose to stop learning, we choose to halt our growth, which kills us. We kill ourselves in cold blood when we choose to stop learning about our students and realizing ourselves.
But what does that have to do with our students?
Our students suffer from this choice more than anyone. When we decide that our students are things that should be seen instantly and not discovered, when we size them up instead of seeing what they're made of, we murder their creativity, their authority, and their presence.
That's a hard pill to swallow. We have such a huge role to play in our students' lives, and the death you're talking about isn't even literal.
I know, but it is real, and it should be a difficult pill to swallow. It should feel real and it should hurt because the possibility of us killing our children with our indifference is real.
I completely understand that, but remember our tours with Wally, Page, and Bowen? They really showed us how there is life within each child because they each displayed so much pride in themselves and everything they had to do at their school.
It was really wholesome.
Me personally, I was dumbfounded how much MEK offered their students, but emphasis on how they have such a sense of community.
Like when Paige would watch over and hug the little preschoolers, helping them get to class during our tour.
It really was. I admired during observation. They really looked out for each other. And to talk about, it was a breath of fresh air.
They really were some sweet babies.
They really loved working together and collaborating, not just as students, but as a team.
Yeah, and like cups though.
What that mean?
Our cup stacking activity.
That was my favorite.
It was such a fun activity and really showed how we can collaborate and help each other out even when we were quite literally blindfolded.
Can you give us a little more context?
Yes, of course. The cup stacking activity was, and bear with me because this will be a long explanation. Okay, so you started with 21 cups in a stack. In the first stack, you must use all 21 cups, starting with 6 on the bottom, then 5, then 4, and so on. Once you get to the top, call out halfway to intimidate your opponent and show them you're not cheating. Then break the stack down. Once you stack all the cups back together, you will call out done.
Wow, that was a lot.
And I'm not finished.
Oh.
So there are 3 rounds we will split into 2 teams. For each round, student versus teacher, and then teacher-student pairs. One person from each team will be blindfolded. They are the ones stacking the cups. The other 2 people on the team are giving instructions to their stacker, and they are not allowed to touch the cups unless the cup falls to the ground.
So in that scenario, they must pick it up and put it back on the table, not the stack?
Yes, and you must utilize teamwork to make this happen.
We love teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work. So then we mix teams. One team will have 2 students and the other will have 2 teachers. The team with 2 students will have a teacher as their stacker, and the team with 2 teachers will have a student as their stacker. Each stacker must be someone who has not done it yet. The same rules as the last round apply. 2 people who have not done it yet have not yet been blindfolded will be the stackers, and their teams will have a student-teacher pair giving instructions for the final round.
Wow.
I'm almost done.
You're not done?
Nope. Okay, the last 2 people who have not yet been stackers will become the stackers for this last round. Their teams will have a student-teacher pair instructing them.
Dang, I'm barely bearing.
Told you to bear with me.
I bared, and I think from our reflection that the activity went smoothly. This was the most engaged we'd ever seen our students. Bowen was more focused than ever, and Wally talked way more than he usually does.
Yes, this activity really allowed us to learn about our kids and figure out that we need more movement-based or game-like activities to keep them engaged.
Yay! We saw what worked and actually made plans to change our way of teaching to help our kids.
Yes, because kids are human.
So human.
Speaking of cups, today's podcast episode is sponsored by Dr. Kessler, the best educational beverage to exist in contemporary history.
Have you ever been so thirsty?
So thirsty for knowledge, for the unknown, for information on young adolescents?
Well, so have we.
And so will you.
So do you thirst, for the knowledge?
You do.
And do we? We do.
Get yourself a can of Dr. Kessler today.
And welcome back from the big brain break. And to kick it off with you guys, I want to ask you guys a genuine question. Do you guys remember what it was like being in middle school? Especially with all 3 of us being girls.
Please don't remind me.
I'm overly crying. Why don't you want to talk about it?
I think Kitty knows more and has a better way to explain about why.
I can try my best. I read this wonderful article called Developmental Characteristics of Young Adolescents. It is a research study in 2022 by Bringer and Kasky. They talk about the development of adolescents in many ways, such as physically, which I think was probably one of the most life-altering for me.
Genuinely, I think the physicality for women in adolescence is so under-discussed.
It is such an experience everyone goes through, both boys and girls, but I feel like I haven't really thought about it much until now.
I remember being so awkward and uncomfortable because I didn't really know what we were talking about, and it took me later in my adult life to learn about my body.
It was really brief in health class, and I feel like it wasn't mentioned ever since. We literally didn't have sex ed until high school, but in middle school we had paperwork about eyeballs.
Only the eyeballs?
Basically, yeah.
See, Ringer and Kasky, they advocate for and discuss how schools need to ensure a safe and healthy space for learning about their bodily changes.
How can you do that for our future classrooms?
We need to begin with really understanding the changes our students are going through.
Exactly. Although we're all different, which is beautiful, we are all going through or have gone through these changes, and we need to normalize these changes like puberty and identity. These kids are going through puberty and extreme self-awareness. It is a delicate and emotional time for them, and we need to be the support and knowledge to guide them.
to support and empathize with each other.
Not just that, but students need a safe space to be themselves and to have space for these changes.
I think you guys are really getting it. The bodies of young adolescents are changing at unique rates that require empathy and guidance, such as shifting in organ development, height, weight, puberty, and awareness of those around us.
One thing I feel like shifted in middle school was our relationships with not only ourselves, but others and the complexity of our thoughts. What do you guys think about that?
Too much.
I don't think I thought enough.
Well, Marilyn, according to the same wonderful article that Kitty read, this could be because your teachers were not challenging you.
What do you mean?
Stated in Developmental Characteristics of Young Adolescents, it says that according to Milner, schools perpetuate the myth of meritocracy when they solely take a biological view of cognitive development. For educators, this means asking hard questions about which students schools systematically assume to be unable to engage in complex thinking tasks due to structural barriers around language, class, disability, race, and culture.
So essentially, they were scared to challenge us due to the fear of being politically incorrect?
Essentially.
Dang, that's really messed up. I feel like it is very important for students, especially starting in adolescence, to start thinking about the world they live in and building thoughts and opinions of their own.
Exactly, me too. But how can they do that if teachers are not advocating or being an example for that discussion to exist?
Does the article talk more about what we as future educators can do to help facilitate our students' cognitive growth?
Yes, it does. The article goes on to talk about how taking a culturally responsive approach to cognitive development requires educators to pay attention to the backgrounds and experiences of young adolescents. It's recognizing that all young adolescents deserve for educators to challenge and engage them in meaningful ways.
I truly agree with this. I think that without having tough conversations, we're essentially setting up our students for failure.
Yes, tough conversations are a part of growing up. They're a part of finding out who you are and discovering your identity.
Kitty, you have said it perfectly. And actually, discovering identity is a big part of cognitive development in young adolescents.
Really? How so?
I found it fascinating as well. But basically, the article states how they tend to be more curious and display wide-ranging interests. Typically, young adolescents are eager to learn about topics they find interesting and useful ones that are personally relevant and represent their intersecting identities, which would be things like race, culture, gender, sexuality, and class. Many also favor active over passive learning experiences and prefer interactions with peers during educational activities. Do you guys feel like this is accurate to your own experience?
Oh my god, yeah. I really wanted to be a contortionist.
Wow. I was gonna say, I wish I learned more about LGBTQ plus identities and the complexities of that, because it was something that I really didn't understand about myself until later in life.
Both of those are very valid and show how we all came into our own and had very different thoughts and interests. To me, I was definitely in my musical theater phase. So I want to touch on what you were saying, Kitty, though, because as it goes back to what I was originally talking about, that us as educators cannot be afraid to discuss and show different identities, especially at this very pivotal time in their lives. We cannot shy away from the fact that there is diversity in our world and hopefully in our classrooms.
I don't know about you guys, but I was not the coolest kid in school.
Yeah, I got along with everyone, but I only had 2 friends.
Same. Everyone liked me, but I wouldn't have called them my friends either.
I feel the same, but these relationships, though we sum them up very quickly, meant everything to us back then. I know they meant everything to me.
Right, the relationships I formed back then laid the foundations for my relationships now.
I agree. Legend has it, the relationships formed back then were so important that they impact how we function in social situations right now.
Legend has it?
Indeed. Legend also has it that humans are social creatures and they require group interactions and peer approval as young adolescents.
Again, legend has it?
Okay, it wasn't a legend, but a research study done by Bringer and Kasky in 2022 on the developmental characteristics of young adolescents emphasizes these truths. But they also emphasize that students during this stage of their lives are exploring the different kinds of relationships they can have in greater detail.
What does that mean?
It means that they are starting to have deeper, more intricate, and intimate relationships with each other. Young adolescents are also experiencing a variety of relationships, positive and negative.
Such as?
Well, kids bully each other, but they also date each other. At this time, they're becoming more cognizant of their position in society, their relationships with the world, as they're becoming more self-aware of their sexual and romantic identities, their relationships with themselves and each other.
So where do teachers come into play in these relationships?
Well, according to Bringer and Caskey, as young adolescents begin to value their relationships with their peers more, they tend to come into conflict with adults. However, they are still dependent on adults. So the best things that teachers can do during this time is form healthy, affirming relationships with young adolescents, integrate SEL into the curriculum, and create opportunities for young adolescents to interact productively with their peers.
So basically, we should stay out of their way while actively supporting them?
In short, yeah.
Awesome.
Guys, I have a question.
What's up, Buttercup?
You feeling fly, chicken pot pie?
What?
I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from.
Neither do I. Anyway, when did you have your first identity crisis?
My first identity crisis was when I said, "You feeling fly, chicken pot pie."
I know.
My first identity crisis was a what that mean moment.
Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I know I was confused about being bisexual. I knew I was bisexual, but I thought that you could only either like boys or only like girls, so I didn't know what I was.
Yeah, I was also very confused about who I was.
But aren't we all?
Actually, yes. If the myths are true, young adolescents are trying to determine their identities, and in doing this, they find themselves searching for an adult identity while seeking peer approval.
Marilyn, again with the myths.
Well, actually, it was legends last time. Anyways, these things, along with the determinants of their self-worth, affect their psychological well-being according to the myths of old.
Right. Students often find their worth in what they can do, like getting good grades or playing sports. I know I did, and I still kind of do.
Same, and you're right. So one of the best things teachers can do to preserve students' mental health and well-being is making their classroom activities and curriculum culturally responsive.
Elaborate.
Yes, ma'am. Students lose a lot of their confidence trying to determine who they are. So their teachers should give students opportunities to make decisions for themselves and ensure that the things they do in class are directly related to who they are.
Oh, I see. So teachers should honor their students by celebrating and teaching their identities in the classroom.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm striving to do in my future classroom. But what about outside the classroom?
Amazing question. The myths also mention that teachers should help students build communities in their schools. This includes gay-straight alliances, student-organized school clubs, and honor societies.
I would have loved to have those things in my middle school.
Me too, but now we have the opportunity to bring these things to our students. I'm so excited for what's to come.
Same!
That concludes our podcast episode. This was exciting to learn about.
And it was so much fun to talk about.
We hope it was fun to hear, too.
Thanks for listening. This was our magnum opus.
We'll see you next time on MEK Podcast.
I've been Marilyn.
I've been Emily.
And I've been Kitty.
And you've been you.
And do we? We do. Here are some bloopers, guys. I came up with that name.
Period. So essentially, it was regular Jenga. And they like the concept of college, but they don't really understand what that means.
Right.
Cut that out.
Right.